Today we have a very fascinating woman with us. She's a young entrepreneur and she just started her company called Levo League. I would let her dive into it and talk a little bit about what it's all about in just a few. Hi Caroline Ghosn, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Sure, absolutely. So I am the oldest of 4 children. I am the first woman in my family to go to college and went to Stanford University, which was the pride and joy of my parents, and left there, came into the corporate world at maybe one of the most difficult times, so in the fall of 2008, and really learned from that experience that there was a lack of resources for young professionals, especially those who don't have sort of strong referential structure and examples in their lives to seamlessly move into the workforce and succeed there, especially with respect to sort of the unwritten rules of the workplace. And that feeling, that pain point, is where the entire idea for the Levo League came from.
Well, can you talk to us a little about that?
Sure.
Yeah, what is Levo League?
The Levo League, very simply, so firstly, Levo is Latin, and it's the root of the word elevate. So the entire idea behind our name is that we are a community that focuses on improving and providing the tools necessary for young professional women specifically to really elevate into the version of themselves that they want to be in the workforce. And our mission, very simply, is to connect women with distinctive opportunities in the workplace across sectors. So we have everything from nonprofit opportunities to startup opportunities to large Fortune 500 companies, and then give them the tools that they need to succeed in those opportunities. So those tools, they include everything from access to advice. So how do I negotiate a raise? Okay, well here, based on the research, are 5 tips to do that, to actual mentorship. So we know that mentorship in and of itself is one of those components that can really make a difference in your career. Having that person who can guide you and say, you might not want to do that, you might want to position it this way, can really make a difference, especially in the beginning when you're just starting out. And so we just don't have enough mentors for the amount of people who need mentorship. So we thought about that, and why not really ignore the old one-to-one mentorship model and completely reinvent it and create a one-to-many mentorship model where women can broadcast their experiences and people can ask questions online through a forum, and that's possible now through technology. So we're focusing on that aspect of the whole elevation in the workforce as well.
I love that.
Our story is, myself and my co-founder Amanda met on our first day at McKinsey, and we were the only women coming out of undergraduate in our training class, and it was the fall of 2008, back to the point about the climate being a little more difficult than usual in the business landscape. And we really learned to lean on each other for professional support and became very close friends as well. And one thing that was really working for us in that context, so McKinsey is very project-based, and so you obviously learn. You learn a lot on each project. We have different teams, different working styles, different clients, and having someone who I could bounce ideas off of or even just share stories with and get encouragement from was tremendously successful for me. It was almost like a professional anchor. I knew that there was someone who was listening, who I could just really use as a thought partner, who cared about my well-being and who was very open and honest with me. And I think that as women in the workplace, we're starting to graduate at the same rate, if not higher rates than men. But if you look at the pipeline over time, it starts to slow down. So women leak out of it at greater rates. And if you look at the Harvard Business Review research or any of the research around centered leadership, you see these numbers. But when you think about it from a very human perspective, it seems to come from a lack of that support and that encouragement. And encouragement in and of itself should never be underestimated, even without tactical advice. And so our experience at McKinsey was such that we realized 2 years into it, wow, we're still standing strong here. We're getting promoted into these roles that we would have never applied to if the other person hadn't encouraged us, right? We didn't self-select out of these opportunities that required 4 years of experience because we had 3 years and all these other things that people tend to do when they first enter the workforce. We can share that experience. And so we began to do so and really collect stories. It's firsthand storytelling, not professional writing from a lofty perspective. It's me saying, this is what worked for me, this is what didn't, I think it's due to these factors. What do you guys think? And the experience is different for everybody, but the storytelling and the best practice sharing, I think, takes us a long way, and it also helps us to feel connected and supported. And so we did that. We realized that the response was overwhelming. You know, we had 100,000 readers and people were asking more and more questions, and we realized we have full-time jobs. We're not career experts at the moment. So, you know, we don't know what to do here. We need to refer people somewhere online that they can access all this information, and started to realize, well, actually there isn't a holistic place to do that. Wait, what's going on there? Where do I send these people? And then out of that, you know, came and all these things, you digest them and you think about them recursively over time. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm gonna do this, right? And so we thought about it for months and started to really observe the world in a different light. And then did our due diligence, our market research, which we are very well trained to do, and realized there's an opportunity here to serve a specific type of young professional, and we happen to be that person. We happen to be the first-hand user. Let's see what we can craft around this need. And then, you know, you really have to, and I say this with love in my heart, you have to actually dedicate yourself 100% when you're starting a company. You can't be a part-time founder. It's an immersive experience. That's part of what makes it so tough. It's also part of what makes it so rewarding and so thrilling. And so to me, it was only at the point where we quit our jobs and we said, okay, you know, here's what we learned. Great. Now, let's clean sheet this exercise and let's see what is here, right? So let's take what we learned as an input. And then let's actually think about, in a hypothetical situation, if I were to build a company around this need, we're clearly hitting on it somehow, but maybe it's just the tip of the iceberg. What would I do? And then you put down a hypothesis, and then you ask people, and from then on, your job as a founder becomes to listen, right? I think that it's a big misconception that, you know, transitioning into new experiences in your life is very easy, and that you wake up, you know, as an entrepreneur and you have this gut feeling that you're going to create this eureka product, and that just happens that way. It does not happen that way. You're always having second doubts. I'm a very structured person. I'm a very vertical thinker. I think about, this is the issue, and let's go from A all the way down to Z until we're done. And so to think about being in an environment where there were no norms, right, there are no rules, it's really anything goes, figure out what's successful. That was a particular source of anxiety for me personally, and I still think that the ambiguity of being an entrepreneur is the most difficult part of it, because I think it really helps to take a step back and think about the fact that you only live once, and I know it sounds trite, everybody says this, but really you only live once. And you have to start doing what you love now, because you never know what's going to happen to you in the future. And you want to look back on your life and know that you were mindful of each and every day that passed, and you lived it in the way that you wanted to live it. And I think that you sort of suspend yourself in that universe when you're doing what it is that your path is. But it's hard. It takes people encouraging you. I think that for myself personally, my co-founder was a huge source of encouragement. She was like, jump first, think later, right? I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, right? And so there are different personalities that are more or less inclined to do that, right? And so for me personally, I'm a very measured person. I think about the pros and the cons, and it took me a little while to realize that really, at the end of the day, it was the feeling that I got from waking up in the morning and being so excited to come into an environment where I was working with people who were building something. And that process of creation is the most important thing to me right now in my life. And finding your passion, so to speak, is an ongoing process. You've never gotten there. You're never, you know, fully there, and you're never not wondering. And it's a journey. It's not a destination. And I think that the one thing that helps you start to push the puzzle pieces together is just getting yourself out there. Find organizations that catch your attention, and they can be something totally surprising. You might find that you have an interest that is never anything you thought you had, right? But find those things and volunteer your time. Everybody has time to volunteer, everybody, right? Go on the weekend for an hour, help out your friend who has a startup who you think is really great, and try to learn and absorb as much as you can. You never know where you're gonna find inspiration, and so the more you can expose yourself to those influences that could trigger, aha, I really love this, the better. the faster you are proactively taking charge of your own path.